Our next speaker this evening is a phenomenal woman, a corporate leader and an active change maker with deep experience in marketing, holding a position of influence in all of her undertakings. Mrs. Deepali Naair is the Director Digital Sales India at ASEAN ZK at IBM. Ma'am, I hope I said that correctly. Awesome. Till February 2022, she was leading marketing as the CMO for IBM India and South Asia. Before IBM, she led marketing and digital at IIFL Wealth Group of companies. She was also a non-executive member of the board at IIFL Wealth Finance. She has held leadership positions with HSBC, L&T, Insurance, and Mahindra Holidays, and has also worked at Marico to manage brands like Saffola and Medicare. She has managed sales, marketing, and customer service leadership roles. She has been on the impacts list of India's 50 most influential women 3 years in a row, ladies and gentlemen. She has also been awarded Economic Times Tech CMO of the Year honor in 2020. I have only mentioned 4 here, but she has a list of about 40 awards in her career. In the last 2 years, she has received 15 of them, and she's been elected to the Governing Council of Internet and Mobile Association of India in 2021. She's also a podcast host to a successful series called Being CEO with Deepali Naair. She was named top 25 women creators in Asia for her podcast, and the podcast has also got multiple awards. She has interviewed over 35 CEOs for the series, and she has recently launched another podcast called Being Founders. Not just this, for the past 2 decades, she has been a faculty at various B schools in India, including the IIMs, MICA, and SP Jain. She has 25,000 followers on LinkedIn and about 10,000 followers on Twitter. Dear delegates, please join me in welcoming, with deafening applause, a powerhouse of a leader, none other than Mrs. Deepali Naair, who's also a very successful podcaster, and she balances being an exec and a podcaster together. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mrs. Deepali Naair. Ma'am, take it away.
Hi,
all
good
yours.
Evening. Can you guys hear me? So, good evening. Okay, let's start with some things that you won't be able to guess about me. You heard the name Deepali Naair. I don't know how many of you noticed the peculiar spelling. We did? Okay, so remember those, because that's how you'll find me very easily on Twitter and LinkedIn, or even if you Google me. But what ethnicity do I have? A little bit of a guessing game for me to see that you're here. I'm not a Malayali. That's nice, but you want to guess further within India, which, there's a reason why I'm asking the question. No, I'm not trying to be popular here, so I'm not saying Hyderabad therefore. Okay, I'm a Marwari girl, okay? I'm a Marwari girl, married to a Malayali, of course. That's how the married surname is there. The next question, okay? Do you want to guess how much did my parents pay for my graduation, for my undergrad studies? Somebody saying $10,000. Okay, any other number? Free. So there is somebody saying free. Okay, but there's no. You can't apparently in this country get free education at all. Let me tell you that. Any other guesses at the back? Remember, please remember, people at the back who are trying to calculate, that I finished my graduation 30 years ago. My parents could not have paid a crore. Somebody was saying a crore. My parents could not have paid a crore. 250 rupees for a full college education. Okay? And you know why? Because actually the education is free, but you've still got to pay for the university examination fee. Okay. Now, let me just tell you, and I know Hufeza did a fabulous job talking about my awards and you know, what I've done in my life. And I can tell you that my parents are very proud. My mom is very proud of, you know, what I've achieved. You know why she's proud? Why she thinks I'm an achiever? You know, because she doesn't understand this world, right? You know, there may be CEOs, there may be unicorn founders, there may be, you know, people who are presidents of countries, but she thinks her daughter's an achiever. Any guesses why? Because to her, success is about the distance that you've traveled in life. You know, it's not always about the height that you achieve, which you compare each other with. It's about the distance that you've traveled. Okay? So on that note, let me tell you the name of the college, which didn't charge me anything, but, you know, where I had to pay $250 university fee. The college name was, so this is to make you laugh, huh? Chaudhary Balluram Godara Rajkiya Mahila Mahavidyalaya. So those of you who understand Hindi will realize that it's government girls' college essentially, in a place called Sri Ganganagar. I don't know how many of you will be able to trace it on the map. It's Rajasthan border with Punjab and with Pakistan. My dad was in the military engineering services, and that's how, you know, we were stationed there for a couple of years, and that's where I did my college from. And here I am, talking to all of you today, which is a great honor for me. So that's fantastic. I just want to take you back, and you know, Ajay did a fabulous job, and I'm, you know, talking about goals and setting up goals for yourself. And I'm pretty sure all of you have this vision for yourself, you know, for your future. You know, you may or may not have the small goals, you may have a tall goal, or you may have a small goal of getting into a great college in the next few years. But where does it all start from? And that's an interesting two stories that I want to share with you. In that government girls' college, for every 100 girls who took admission in the first year, okay, and you finish your graduation in 3 years essentially, for every 100 girls who took admission, only 50 passed out. Why? Back in the year 1991, if 100 girls took admission in that college, only 50 passed out. Why? They didn't study is an obvious answer, but what's the reason for that? Some of you said married, right? We are talking about a cohort which is perhaps your mother's cohort, right? A lot of them got married by choice. They weren't forced into marriage. They weren't told that, no, you can't finish your education. It's a choice that one makes and sets a vision for oneself because of what we see around us. Back then, I used to be an extremely bright student. I don't have a certificate, so I've not put it up on my LinkedIn, but I am an India topper for ICSE. No, don't clap for me because my son, who is now 18, thinks that I topped India with a very, very low percentage. Now you guys score much higher, okay? Coming back to the point, you know, my mom was once talking to me and she said, you know, what do you want to become and how do you want to lead your life and stuff like that. And I was, I think, 18 at that point of time, practical. While I was at school, of course, I wanted to be an IAS officer. But, you know, at 18, I told her, I think it'd be great for me to become a professor at college. And she said, why? Okay. And she was, of course, very disappointed with my answer because I was one of the brightest kids, you know, at school, and now I'm at college, I'm saying I want to be a professor. She was very disappointed that I had given up my ambition of becoming an IAS officer. So I told her, I said, no, you can lead a good life, you can take care of the kids, you will have summer vacations along with the children, and you can have a very balanced life. My mother read me the right act that day. She fired me. She fired me for thinking like that, and she fired me and told me that I have to think bigger. That one message is what I want to share with you. Not too many times will you have an opportunity to have a discussion like this. It could happen with a teacher, it could happen with a parent, it could happen with an elder sibling, but sometimes you may not have this kind of a conversation. Just think bigger than your biggest vision idea for yourself. That's extremely important. You cannot gauge the world of the future, so just have a very, very big vision for yourself. The second story that I want to share with you, despite all this, very conservative, Marwadis are known to be conservative. I was studying in Rajasthan. I told you about the college, girls' education didn't matter. Interestingly, except for my parents, nobody around me had any big vision for my career. There were no expectations. There was no pressure, okay? Nobody came home and asked, what are you going to do? So that Hrithik Roshan was being asked, right? What are you going to do and what's your goal in life? Nobody asked me. I had no pressure, zero pressure. So that can be an advantage and that can be a disadvantage, okay? Zero pressure actually lowers your ambition also. But there were other things that were happening around you. I still distinctly remember, and I want to share this story because of, where I am, and I've obviously bucked the trend as far as my cohort is concerned. Not too many 50-year-old women in India have, careers such as I have. You've heard of eve teasing? You guys recognize the term? Okay, very, very rampant in small towns and especially in North India, right? And when that used to happen, a typical reaction of the parents of the girls first would go home and tell their parents about it. If they told the mother, the reaction used to be, okay, stay at home for a week. Miss college or whatever, miss school or whatever, so that the incident doesn't happen again. When one such time that it happened to me, I think I must have been 16 or 17, and I came home crying. My father, who I told you, was working in the military engineering services. Of course, I got comforted first, and then he asked me. So, I explained to him how the guy was on a bike or stuff like that. Did you jot down the bike number or no? Okay. So thankfully I had, and I gave him the bike number. And he didn't do anything that day, but about 6 or 7 days later, I got a call from a guy apologizing to me. My dad had seen that bike number in the market, found out the bike belonged to who, gone and spoken to the boy's father, made that boy apologize to me. And the second thing that my dad told me, he told me, he says, look at the society that you're living in. And I don't recommend this in today's day and age, and I don't recommend this in Bombay. But this is what my dad told me then. We're talking about 33 years ago. He said, and I will have to use a Hindi term, saying, take out your chappal and start beating the boy if somebody does this to you. So you've seen that Shah Rukh Khan movie in which he's the hockey coach, right? In that the girls beat up the boys at the McDonald's. You know now why that's my favorite scene, right? Yeah. So I see the girls cheering, but I think there's a lesson in this for everyone. Okay. Because bullying today is not just an issue, with girls. Bullying can happen to boys also. I think, but I think what matters is coming and talking to someone who will listen to you. Find that someone. It may be a parent. Once again, it may be a sibling. It may be a mentor. It may be a teacher. Talking is very important. And second, what did my dad do with that small incident? He instilled a lot of what I call spunk in me. Okay, tend to use the word courage, but I think I have that spunk. And that spunk has come, many times in my career and in my life to take decisions which buck the trend. So I don't recommend my career graph to everyone to say, follow this career graph, because that happened 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and it worked for that time. It may or may not work for you today. But what is important to notice is that I did a lot of bucking of the trend. Why I get invited to speak also at a lot of conferences which are women-related is I've taken 2 sabbaticals in my 30-year career. One to have my son 18 years ago. So yes, I live with a Gen Z at home, by the way. Okay. And second, to take care of my mother when she was unwell, in 2016, and fairly long breaks at both. And I've come back from those breaks fairly strong. As you can see, you can't see a break in my career graph. And people do ask that question, saying, what did you do during the break? So that's, of course, a topic for another time, not for today. But I think one thing that I want to share with you is that during those breaks, I actually started entrepreneurship and businesses of my own. Okay? One of the interesting ones, and I know Crimson is here and they help you with your essays. One of the things that I actually started, and you know that I'm a digital marketing person and I've been a head of marketing and I've managed brands such as Saffola and, Medicare and HSBC and whatnot. So that, of course, in a one-on-one you guys can ask me questions about, but that I today think I can do in my sleep after, doing that for 20, 30 years. But this is the interesting thing that I have learned and I did. In my first break in 2005, I actually set up a consulting business for students who got their IIMs and their GMAT calls. I actually used to coach them for their interviews and coach them for writing their essays. I started completely on my own. But what came to my rescue? What came to my rescue was the fact that I was a brand expert. I knew how to look at a target audience. I knew how to look at what they want. I knew how to package a communication to deliver that message to them. And that's the framework I used for setting up the business, where I said, what do the colleges want? Here is a product which is a student, who has to get admission there, how his communication should be packaged. Okay? And that framework stands true even today. So, life has come full circle. Some of the students that I taught then, they have younger siblings, nieces. They also have children now. They're coming to me for their school interviews, saying, ma'am, you've got to prepare us for those. Okay? I think, but the most beautiful thing that has happened on account of those relationships and the fact that I taught, in those years, is the network of people I have across the country, across the world, literally, of all kinds of ages and all, generations. So that's on learning. Okay, now let's switch to the podcast bit, which is very interesting. So all of you would think I should be super confident. Okay, I'm very successful. Financial stability is there. So what's a big deal starting a podcast? Okay, it should come very easy to me. If I want to do something, I should be super confident about doing it. But I want to tell you about my podcasting story, and that happened, 2 years back. 6th of March, I took a flight with a friend who's the founder of a company called Awaaz.com. Awaaz is where my podcast is hosted. And I was just, talking to him and saying, oh, I think COVID is coming. At that point of time, we didn't know that COVID was going to last more than 2 years, right? We all, when it started, thought that it's going to be a few months. And I told him, I said, I have this plan. I want to write some articles. I've done a lot of research for 2 years. I've been researching this space about interviewing CEOs. Please notice the amount of preparation that's gone into it, therefore, okay? So at the point that I hadn't even started, I told him, 2 years has gone into researching this space of interviewing CEOs, and I want to do this kind of conversations with them. And this research was going to, at that point of time, planned to be a series of articles in a business magazine. I had the deal from the business magazine that they were going to print it. I had already written to a CEO saying, this is the plan, we were going to do it. And I said, it was meant to be face-to-face interviews with pictures clicked and things like those. I said, look, now with COVID coming, you know, my plan's not going to happen. He is the founder of a podcasting platform. He immediately told me, he said, so this is at an airport, a chance conversation. He said, why don't you do a podcast instead? In fact, his exact words were, why write when you can speak? And Deepali, I mean, he's seen me over the years, so he says, you know, Deepali, you do a fab job, you know, in any case of speaking. You know what I turned around and told him? I said, do you give invitations to anybody who you meet to come and podcast? That's about my vulnerability. That's about me not believing that I will do a successful job of this. And this is a question that you will ask yourself when you're setting up a vision for yourself many times in your life. Okay, you will not set a tall vision for yourself because you will ask saying, am I really capable of doing this? And that's what I'm here to tell you. Okay, it didn't end there. COVID happened. I didn't pay any attention to this for 3-4 months. I was, I think, in my mind getting depressed as COVID progressed. I'm one of those who does not have a live-in, help at home. So my first 3-4 months were spent cooking, washing vessels, cleaning home, organizing everything without, the help at home. I had to do all that. And I was, getting depressed, I think, okay? I have a coach, I have a lovely coach. I went and spoke to her, and I was telling her, about all the things that are happening to me. So she again prodded me back, and she said, why don't you look at the podcast thing? So I went back, to this gentleman, and I said, look, okay, maybe, I want to do this. I did a lot of homework. Now, this is for all of you, if any one of you have ambitions to be content creators, okay? A lot of research went in 2 months listening to various podcasts, what kind of content works when you do interviews. I arrived at a lot of, interesting insights. Most podcasts were 45 minutes plus. They were audio and video. And I found that people's interests wane after about, 20, 25 minutes of it. So my podcasts are 30 minutes. They're only audio. There is a very snappy section. We have a rapid fire section in the end, not like the Karan Johar's Coffee with Karan. They're very meaningful questions. I do an intro, which is, I love Coffee with Karan, by the way. Huh? Okay. So tell me, I hope, how many of you have seen all the 4 episodes till now? The new season. Okay, good. I love him. Okay. And I'll tell you the reason why. I will tell you the reason why I love him and Oprah and Ellen and Graham Norton, and David Letterman. Okay. Okay. So coming back, I didn't begin even then. I did the research and I said, this is my idea. They had some suggestions to make to the ideas, but I held on to my idea and I said, this is how I want it if I'm going to do it. So that's again about courage of conviction. However, I had a lot of niggling doubt. So I went back to my mother, okay? And I went back to my mother because, I had a habit of sending voice notes, to people on WhatsApp. So once I sent a voice note and a very dear friend wrote back to me saying, Deepali Mangeshkar. Okay, and I thought that person was criticizing me or maybe making fun of me. And I called that person back, very dear friend of mine, and I was told, saying, no, you do sound fantastic. Okay, but I didn't believe that also. I went back to my mother and I told her, I said, do I sound fantastic? I mean, I have won a lot of debates and speeches when I was at school and things like those, a lot of elocution contests, huge body of work there. So my mom goes, of course. You sound fabulous. And then, she went on and told a few things to me which were nice. And I actually fought with her and I told her, you've never told me this before. No, this is how sometimes, you get taken for granted at home, by the way. I actually fought with her and I said, why didn't you tell me this before? My mom was very fed up of me that day and she said, but so what? So what if I didn't tell you before? And I actually turned around and told her, I said, do you realize I could have had a career as an RJ? Had you told me many years ago, right? Now, this is about suppressed ambition, and suppressed desires. Anyway, I did that. I did the same thing with my brother, who again I questioned, and I said, you've never given me this feedback. And he said, but I've always given you feedback. So he's also an MBA, also in the marketing domain. He's seen me present at forums with PowerPoint slides and things like those. So he said, I always come and told you that you've presented fabulously. I said, but that's the slide, that's the content, that's whatever. You've never told me that I sound fabulous. She said, but you do, okay? And then we went and recorded. Everybody that I wrote to, my friends who were the CEOs, said yes to me. Nobody questioned me. Everybody told me, you're doing a great job. I had 5 episodes recorded, okay? And the Awaaz team is telling me, let's launch. I'm saying no. Any reason? Why do you think? What is the reason you think I gave them? Okay, so all the voices that I'm hearing. We had a plan for 100 episodes, so we had a plan. I had recorded 5, and I had confirmations from 5 more CEOs. Okay? I was very satisfied with the quality of the final product because I had heard 5 already. Okay? No, but self-doubt surfaces in many different ways. I said, what if I don't have the time, because I have a very busy corporate life, what if I don't have the time to launch it and record it and do this again and again like the plan is? So that was my fear. But anyway, we figured out a method. We reached 8 episodes. We still didn't launch. We recorded 8. And my fear still remained. So there's another interesting thing that we did. We've never announced, my podcast, we've never announced that it's a weekly or a fortnightly. We haven't announced, and people are comfortable with that. But eventually, my founder friend, again, his team was talking to me. He came to me on the phone and he said, I'm launching it. I don't care, okay? We'll see what happens, right? And what he did was, normally they launch with 3 episodes together. In my case, we did 5 together because we had that body of work. And it was, of course, very successful. But you know what? I'm a very data person also. You want to take a guess, what did I study in college, since we were talking about college? Oh, we did that? Okay, in those days you did not have BBA, BMS, you did pure subjects. There was nothing called data science. When I saw my first computer, when I first saw a computer in my life, when I came to do my MBA, okay? That was the year 91. That's when I first saw a computer. So there was nothing called data science. I studied English and maths. And philosophy, 3 subjects. Philosophy I'd like to forget all about. But English and maths I still use and remember. Now what I did, again, till 17th episode, I did not even ask them how is my podcast doing. They kept on telling me, best-selling show, second best-selling show, best-selling show. I did not ask them for any data. And as a CMO, I'm used to dealing with data to say what impact, how is it doing, show me the numbers, whether our ad campaign has done well or not. But here I didn't ask them any. We were then going to enter the podcast for some awards. That's the time I finally had to force myself for writing the award entry saying, okay, give me the data, right? I was given the data that you've got 57% retention rate. What that means is that for every 100 people who sample any part of the podcast, 57 of them listen to every single episode completely. And we were getting traction from B-school students, and we were getting traction from young corporate executives. I was the only one, on this side of 40 when we got that award. So that one I get a kick about, by the way, okay? And I get bragging rights with my son, who's 18. Okay, I get bragging rights with him, and I think I get bragging rights with you guys also, right? Okay. And then again, I didn't ask. So we reached the 27th episode for writing another award entry. I was scared to ask. I wanted to live with this dream of 57%. Because I said the more episodes are there, retention rate is obviously going to drop. I asked at the 27th episode, it was 59%. We've just done the 36th episode and I haven't asked still, so I'm yet to ask. But yes, they've come back to me and we've launched another series called Being Founders with Deepali Naair. Because I get in my LinkedIn just requests from everyone to say, feature this. So a lot of PR agencies reach out. They say, feature our client, and we're getting a lot of requests. So we started another series called Founders because my original series only does the, professional CEOs, right? I'm going to stop this here on a high, to check if you guys have any questions. But it's been a wonderful journey doing the podcast. I think I stand here, talking to you about 2-3 things. One is, there's a gentleman called Clayton Christensen. He's no more. He's a Harvard professor. He wrote a book and he did a commencement speech, and there is a Harvard article called How to Measure Your Life. Okay, and I strongly recommend that each one of you read it because he talks again about having the goals. But he was a gentleman even before my era. So he talks about 3 very different kind of goals. He talks about not getting divorced. He talks about having your children's respect and staying out of jail. He says those should be your 3 goals in life. The first 2 may be irrelevant today for our society, honestly. But staying out of jail is still very relevant. And staying out of jail not because of you will not require a criminal lawyer, you will require a civil one in life, because what is happening in our businesses, in work life and in corporate life, and living and understanding what ethics, corporate governance and values is going to become very important. So this is one message I want to leave with you. And why I bring him up is that you've got to set a vision of a very different nature, for your life. And whenever I think about his article, I think about the fact, how will my mother measure my life? She's very happy. And how will I measure my life? So today when I think about it and I reflect back, I realize that every goal I set for myself was in hindsight. And I am a victim, I must admit, of setting a goal which was not tall enough. I feel today that had I had in hindsight a vision of setting a taller goal for myself, I would have perhaps reached higher. Okay, so I'm an equal victim, of that. Second is the famous speech that you all would have heard, Steve Jobs, connecting the dots, Stanford speech. Right? So my last thing that I want to share with you, and why, remember I told you I will talk about why I like Coffee with Karan and Ellen and Oprah and David Letterman and Graham Norton. What do you think was my favorite TV show when I was a child? Please remember, those were Doordarshan days, huh? So don't even think. Don't even think. I'm going to give you a hug after this session. Phul khile hai gulshan gulshan. That was a celebrity interview show by Tabassum. And people my age, most of them will come and tell you that Chitrahar used to be our favorite, show on television. It was appointment television. You only got 1 or 2 things, during the week that you really wanted to watch. But my favorite show used to be the interviews. So there's another gentleman called Malcolm Gladwell, one of my favorite author. He talks about the fact, and he explains Bill Gates' journey and a lot of the other famous, unicorn owners' journeys. And he talks about the fact that you require 10,000 hours of practice and study to become an expert at something. So a lot of the people tell me podcasting and speaking comes effortlessly to you. And I realize, like Steve Jobs realized that him studying the fonts and therefore, him putting them in the Mac was, correlated to what he did at college. I think in my case, more than 10,000 hours have been spent watching interviews. Okay? So James Lipton inside the Actors Studio, Tabassum, Coffee with Karan, Oprah, Ellen DeGeneres, David Letterman, even Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel. I just watched the interview bit. I don't watch up their stand-up comedy bit, but I watch the interview bit. Okay? So that's how life comes a full circle. Thank you for having me here and for giving me a patient listen. Graham Norton. Yes, I've seen him sometimes. Yes, him too. So, Hufeza, are we taking questions? Yes, I can see a hand there.
Conversations, and more importantly, make it productive for us as well as the other person.
What a fantastic question. You know, one of the other things that I'm quite known for, and people ask me this, is how to network. Okay, because I have built a huge network. I'm still in touch, for example, with lots of students who I've taught, 20, 25 years ago, right? I think three things. I'm going to say this in Hindi first and then in English, okay? Networking means neki kar darya mein dal, which means it is good karma, and you forget about that good karma. It may not come back to you directly from that person, but it will come back to you, I think. Okay, so I must say that. So when you're doing networking, a lot of the times people have very short-term ambitions saying, I'm doing this, when can I ask for a favor back? I'm doing this, when can I get advice? Even when you're looking for mentors, you want advice, but how many of you think, how can I add value to this mentor's life? Do you think like that? Ask yourself that question. If you want a relationship, then if you want a relationship with a great mentor, first ask yourself, what do I bring to the table and how can I add value to his life? So that's number one, okay? Number two, stay the course for many, many years. Relationships work over many, many years. A gentleman who offered me to do the podcast, I had been in touch with him for over 10 years. Okay? Third is, be authentic. And I know that is very often used and abused, this term, but that really means something. And I'll give you a very small example once again. A lot of the time you feel that if we appreciate others, we'll make them happy. Right? That's a great principle to have. But appreciate them only for something that you think it's worth appreciating. If you don't like their clothes, don't talk about the clothes. Okay? If you only like the nail polish that day, then only talk about the nail polish. Okay? It's very important to appreciate authentically. So these are three things that I want to talk to you about. So your network will really work for you over a long period of time.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I have a bunch of questions. My name is Pursumani, and I will get in touch with you on LinkedIn.
You can get in touch with me. Yeah, Hufeza. He's saying he told me just now that he has a surprise for me. But for the rest of them, so just wait a moment for your surprise. I'm easier to get on Twitter, okay? And I think somebody was supposed to flash a screen here talking about my Twitter handle, if they have it. But it's Deepali Naair. DEEPALI You can catch me on LinkedIn also, but I'm a little weaker. Okay, we'll wait. Hufeza first wants to do a surprise for me, and then we'll come to the questions.
Thank you.
Uzaifa. I got his name wrong. I'm so sorry. Okay.
I know all of you have a lot of questions, but we thought that since Deepali ma'am is a podcaster, we thought we'd turn the mic to her, okay, and actually have a sit down over here, right here, with Damaya and Sahil from the Secretariat, so we can turn the mic to her and actually have that sit-down conversation with her. Ladies and gentlemen, so let's give it up for Deepali ma'am. Ma'am, are you ready?
I'm always ready.
Okay, awesome.
But
awesome.
I'm always ready on the other side, okay?
On the other side.
On the other side. So let's see how I do here now.
Ma'am, like your mom and brother told you much later,
yes,
when you asked them, you're fabulous.
Thank you.
I think that's not going to be a problem. Okay. All right, everyone, let's give it up for Deepali ma'am, Sahil, and Damaya.
Hi, Sahil.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi, Tamaya.
Thank you so much for joining us today, ma'am. It's really an honor. And we've all heard how great you are at interviews. We're just hoping to mimic a little bit of that here. So,
Sure.
yeah, really excited to be talking to you. So we have a few questions prepared. Just wanted to pick your brain a little, see what's going on in there, see what we can learn from you. And our first question had a little to do with your multifaceted experiences. So we know that you've had a history both with entrepreneurship and with industry. You've juggled these two things so successfully, and you've moved so many times in your career, even to a podcast, which is such a different field, such a different thing from all your other experiences. So we were wondering if you have any advice on how we can invest in ourselves today as young people to set us up for that success in the future.
Thank you. That's an interesting question. I have a very simple answer. Actually, think of yourself as a lifelong student. I still get into a classroom pretty much every 2 years. I have, of course, gone and done a bread making class when I know nothing about it. I've also done a very failed painting class because I'm not very good at it. But I have done a fabulous storytelling class, okay, where I learned lots of wonderful techniques about communication, and all in the last 5-6 years. What I want to share with you is that there is a concept called learning agility. Okay, Ajay spoke about agility, which was speed. But learning agility essentially means you take frameworks from one sphere of your life and you apply them to something else. Like I gave you an example from my branding thing to doing the essays, the framework that I developed. So I think be a lifelong student would be my advice.
All right. Well,
I don't know how I'm doing, huh?
Well, thank you for that. You know, we have a lot of young people out here that have a lifetime to learn, so that's great advice to keep to them. And so just to talk a little bit about what you spoke about earlier and your experience as a woman and how that's kind of affected you coming up and your success. There's a lot of women out in the audience and a lot of people on scholarship. You know, you also said that you come from humble beginnings. So we just wanted to talk about what is like the biggest piece of advice you can have for people coming from similar backgrounds.
You know, it's a very simple piece of advice, and I get asked this question very often. And it may sound very simple to you, but in hindsight, the only thing is stay the course, don't give up. Okay, life's going to be tough a lot of the times. Your children are going to pile guilt onto you. You know, family's going to pile guilt onto you. You will find it very tough balancing your job and home. You will actually be physically exhausted around the years that, you go through childbirth. But just stay the course. I think that's very important. I already spoke to you about spunk and courage. I think so that's the second piece of advice. And third, on days that you are not feeling so good, look at so many people who don't have the privileges that we have, You'll feel better.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think for another question, we want to shift a little way from your stories and a little more to some of the things that are going on in the world today. And we've all been through a major pandemic, and we know you have a lot of experience with marketing, and especially within the technology sphere. And I think during COVID, we've all seen how big of a part technology plays in our lives. And especially the way that's presented to us and the way we interact with that and how much that influences the way we think about the world. So we were wondering if you have any insights into how that's changed during COVID, how our ways of interacting with technology have changed.
So my observation is, one, technology will change the way we live our lives even more in future and how we conduct business. Second is real estate on the phone is going to be a fight of the future. And I think third, perhaps, you will have much greater voice as a person because of social media.
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Yes. Thank you for that great answer. So now we're going to kind of pivot over to some more fun, rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So for our first one is, if there was a movie made about your life, what would the genre be?
Slice of life? I don't know, romantic comedy or a slice of life?
All right. In this movie, who would play you?
You know, I'm very fond of Julia Roberts, but I think Yeah, and especially what she did in Erin Brockovich. So yes, therefore. Okay.
So what are some things that you're actively working to improve?
My health, and I think I found Ajay's session very inspiring, so I need to focus on my health, I think.
So what's something that motivates you?
I think when I listen to, actually listening to Oprah motivates me. Looking at some very inspiring people that I find inspiring motivates me.
I guess on that same tangent, like who are some people that you admire?
Oprah is definitely one person that I strongly admire.
Right. And I think for our last one, if you were organizing a topic for MUN, what would it be?
I think I would be about how to create more happiness in this world. So, you know, you have that happiness index for the countries, so something around that.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. How did I do?
Incredible. That's great.
Okay, but we've lost a lot of the audience, but there were some people who had their hands still up, but I leave it to you, to the organizers. I don't know what your time limit is, but I'm here otherwise. You can take a few questions? Okay. So I see a few hands there. Yeah. To some of the middle benchers. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, ma'am. I'm Srimay Urganti. I'm originally from Hyderabad.
I remember you presented also today, right? Yes.
Like you mentioned, you released an album. Can you sing a song for us, please?
No, I didn't release an album. A podcast. I do a podcast,
Yeah.
so you heard me speak. No, but
Yeah.
I can't sing. No.
And now, when you're lazy, what motivates you? Like when you're lazy, you say, "Oh, I don't want to do that." What motivates you at that time?
I think the end result. I know that what's going to be the result like, which I of course visualize to be fabulous. So that motivates me.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hello.
In any particular order. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Tejas, and my question to you would be,
I
how
can't.
do you think your skills have transferred over from learning during that era to actually implementing them today, like in the industry you are in?
So I can tell you this, that I'm a very different person today than what I was then. Okay. So one is of course your basic characteristics. I'm a lot more resilient. I think I don't give up that easily perhaps today. But also things may actually come more difficult to me now. But I think some of the basic skills, which is communication, language skills, problem solving skills, reasoning skills, they stay with you through the life. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you, miss.
Hi, I'm Advita. I'm in UNICEF, and I just wanted to ask a question. So you talked about how the thing that motivates you is the result. So how do you deal with the situation if the result that you were expecting doesn't actually happen?
Well, you lose some and you win some, and I will repeat what Ajay also said in the earlier session, that you must treat all failures as learning opportunities. You've got to get up and go. So I said the resilience is higher now. That's because there is higher number of failures also now. Just like there is a body of successful work, there's also a body of, failed work.
Right, that's true. Thank you.
We'll be able to take one more question.
Yep.
Hi, ma'am. Ma'am,
Yes.
I'm
I don't
Manthan
know where to
from
see.
UNCPD.
Okay.
Here,
Yes.
ma'am, do you think what the girls did in Chak De India was right?
What I believe is that there are certain situations which require perhaps aggressive tactics. And when it comes to physical safety, or when it comes to making a point at some point of time, because the point that the director brought that climax to was physical safety of a girl. I think when it comes to your own physical safety, as a mother, for example, if it ever came down to physical safety of my child, I would perhaps resort to, extreme measures. I would like to end it there. But let me just say this, no two situations are alike, okay? this kind of situation will not happen at work. It will not happen at a school and a college also perhaps, right? It doesn't happen under a normal circumstance. But you've got to take care of yourself when it comes to your physical safety.
Thank you. Ma'am, we'll take one more.
Yeah,
Can we?
I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm also here informally. If people want to come and talk to me, I'm comfortable with that, yeah.
What's one piece of advice that you would like to give young women today who want to, let's say, be a content creator? What's the one piece of advice you usually give to young girls who would want to do something like that?
If you have an idea, do not give up. Wait for 2 years. Okay, 2 years is the norm. And don't think about monetizing it for 4 years at least. I've got paid 0 for my podcast till now. Okay, so monetization comes much, much later.
We're taking one more question here.
Good evening, ma'am. This side.
Okay.
Ma'am,
on my right. Okay.
I'm Sonika from the committee of UNHRC. My question to you is, do you think your life would have played out differently if you had made other choices? According to you, what time of, when in your age do you think that would have affected you majorly?
I think life will turn out differently if you make different choices. I'm very conscious of that. I've had a lot of decision points in my life, where I could have taken different decisions. Having said that, I think the only one I regret is not saying yes to a job opportunity internationally from a career perspective. But from a personal life perspective, because there's a balance that you do in personal and professional life, but from a personal life perspective, I've seen many losses also, but I wouldn't lead my life any other way.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
That's
Thank you so much, Deepali ma'am. That session was absolutely insightful, and as you can see, there's so many hands still up, and they want to ask you so many questions, like you said, and recommended that they can catch up with you after your talk now.
Yes, and they can also ask me the very same questions on Twitter. They can even reach out to me on Instagram. Twitter, I'm very, very active on. Instagram after that, and after that on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer those questions.
Can we please give a tremendous round of applause to Deepali ma'am for that absolutely wonderful presentation and speech. And I'd also like to request Oscar and Mir to please felicitate Deepali ma'am today here. Ma'am, thank you for being with us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I want to thank all of you for listening, and of course, thank you to the organizers for inviting me here. It's been an absolute pleasure. I don't know where Aditya is, but this has been in making for a couple of years, actually. I think our first conversation happened before COVID, but, eventually this happened, fructified today. 2 years. This has been 2 years in the making, yeah.
This is for you.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you. Thank you, Mir. This looks lovely.
Can we please have Deepali ma'am's Twitter handle and everything on screen once again for everyone who wishes to connect with her?